Yahoo Sports Fantasy Football Live is presented by iShares.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Week 6 edition of Fantasy Football Live. I'm Liz Loza, and I'm here with my favorite Sunday morning crew, Andy Behrens, Matt Harmon, Tank Williams, and betting analyst Minty Betts. Again this week, there is action across the pond. The Dolphins and Jags are in the third quarter in London, and right now, the Jacksonville Jaguars have pulled ahead 17-13 with a James Robinson touchdown. We love to see that. He's got the backfield all to himself. Let's check in with everyone and get some first half takeaways or anything else that's on your mind. Andy?
Well, once in a while, I'm reminded that the Jacksonville Jaguars decided they would draft a running back in the first round this past year. That's just crazy to me. James Robinson was this good last year. He's dominating again today. He looks terrific. It's a good time to be invested in him.
I could not agree more, and it's a relief to see him not have Carlos Hyde to deal with in this one. Matt, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think Trevor Lawrence has looked good in this game. It's been fun to watch. Like, you know, there's obviously always going to be some rocky moments with Jacksonville and the whole Urban Meyer experience. It's a little early for the Urban Cam, but we'll take it. We'll take football on all day. I'm okay with that. But yeah, I think Trevor Lawrence has looked pretty good in this spot as well. And Tua coming back has not been like the worst thing in the world for the Dolphins offense.
No, not the worst thing in the world. Tank, any thoughts on Miami and Tua's return?
I mean, we already hate, I guess, London enough to, like, keep sending them these bad games. And now we're going to talk about Jacksonville and Miami for, like, 3 people straight. Like, nah, let's go ahead and spin this forward to a little bit of Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert. Like, that's the game I want to see. Like, y'all not going to hear me talk about Trevor Lawrence, too, and all that stuff. Give me the real touchdown Jesus, Justin Herbert, going against Action Jackson in that matchup in Baltimore. Like, I cannot wait to see these two dudes get down. Justin Herbert with all those weapons he's got. Lamar Jackson just putting the team on his back every week with everybody banged up. Like, this is going to be a beautiful thing.
Oh, I love that you went elsewhere. I'm going to do the same. I'm going to follow suit, Tank, because I am fascinated by this Arizona at Cleveland game. The Cardinals are undefeated, and yet they are 3.5-point underdogs. I don't know, per Dalton Del Don, it's supposed to be windy. I looked it up, 20 miles per hour wind expected in Cleveland, but there's also a COVID outbreak going on amongst the Cardinals. Cliff Kingsbury isn't going to be available to coach them, so I am fascinated. Nick Chubb's out. Like, I'm fascinated to see what will happen in this particular matchup. Minty, I'm also fascinated to hear from you and see what sort of action you think is still alive for bettors back in this London game.
Well, back in this London game, a lot of bettors were betting on Miami -3, and then the line closed at Miami -2. Right now we know Jacksonville is leading this game, but Miami's a live dog here, and you can live bet them for plus money, and Miami doesn't really have to win. They just have to lose, or they can lose by 2 points or so. So I would live bet Miami here.
Just lose by 2 points, Miami. That's all you got to do. All right. Still lots of lineup decisions to make this morning. Send your roster questions on Twitter using the AskFFL hashtag or drop a question in the chat, and we'll try to answer as many as we can on the show. Plus, our own Scott Pianowski is answering questions all morning long live on Twitter. Whew, all right, I mentioned Nick Chubb a little bit earlier. Let's turn our attention to the actives and inactives for the rest of Week 6. It is ugly out there. But some good news to begin with. Chiefs receiver Tyreek Hill missed a couple of practices this week with that quad injury, but it looks like he'll be in there today and active against Washington. Speaking of the football team, Terry McLaurin has been nursing a hamstring issue and was held out of practice on Friday, but he's active today. So, by the way, is Antonio Gibson, who was also listed as questionable. Chargers wideout Mike Williams missed practice all week, but Ian Rappaport reports he is expected to play today in Baltimore, so Tank, you should be happy about that. He's coming off of that monster 34-point fantasy performance last week. Finally, Cowboys-Patriots this afternoon has some questionable tags, including Ezekiel Elliott, but he's expected to play, and Damian Harris should also be active in this game. All right, that is the latest. Now let's get into our first over-under on Taylor Heineke. Matt, set this one up for us wearing the, you dressed, you know what? You understood the assignment. Way to dress for success here.
Well, you know, it's October. It's the month of dressing for the season. We got Halloween coming up. But listen, I did wear the shirt today because there is nothing I love talking about as much as, and I love the sorry fits here because I do love my guy Ryan Fitzpatrick. But Taylor Heineke is basically like the new version of Ryan Fitzpatrick. So let's set the line here at 299.5 passing yards, and I am obviously going over here. Look, the best part is that we don't actually have to include like total points, touchdowns, anything like that. We can just talk about hollow yardage here because just like Ryan Fitzpatrick, I think Taylor Heineke is like the more aggressive, even more willing to write some checks that maybe his arm can't cash. But against this Kansas City pass defense in a very high scoring, the highest projected point total of the entire slate, I love Taylor Heineke being able to get a couple big plays off. Terry McLaurin being there is huge. So yes, I am going over. I definitely like him as a quarterback streamer against this really, really bad defense. Andy, what say you?
Yeah, you hit a key point there. We're not worried about covering spreads here. We're not worried about touchdowns. We're not worried about anything. We're just talking about compiling yardage, and that is clearly going to happen. Kansas City on the season is allowing like 296 passing yards per week. They've just been a dreadful defense. 9.3 yards per attempt allowed, 7.1 yards per play allowed. They've just been terrible. And Heineke doesn't have to be great in this one. It doesn't have to be a quarterbacking clinic or anything like that. Obviously, they're going to be chasing points. They're going to be chasing yards. He's got a healthy Terry McLaurin. There's just no way he doesn't go over here.
Absolutely. I'm right there with you, Andy. Liz, are you going to make this a clean sweep here for ODU's finest?
Bring out the broom. We're all in lockstep on Heineke. I feel like I've been talking him up week after week. And by the way, this is not a hard line for him to pass. Andy mentioned how deficient the Chiefs have been against the pass. They've also allowed 3 quarterbacks to surpass 300 yards in their last 5 outings. So this is totally doable. Again, Taylor Heineke is going to be chasing points. And forget the yardage. Who even cares if he gets to 300 yards? He's doing it with his legs. The Chiefs are he's a top 12 play this week. I'll go even a step further. The Chiefs are giving up the most rushing yards to opposing quarterbacks and the most fantasy points, period, to opposing quarterbacks. So yes, go ahead and plug in Heineke.
That's right. Get the pride of Old Dominion University in your fantasy lineups. We've got more over-unders coming up later in this show. Now let's send it over to Tank.
What's up, holla? It's time for our Week 6 Primetime Ballers. Now, we first starting off with Sunday Night Football. Seahawks at Pittsburgh Steelers. I feel like the football guys just have it in for us because this should be an amazing matchup with Russell Wilson and a healthy Ben Roethlisberger, but we got Geno Smith and an injured Big Ben. I don't know what's going on. Great fantasy matchups here, but I'm not expecting too much. So with the Pittsburgh Steelers starting off, Deontay Johnson, I expect this to be a Najee Harris heavy run game, but it seems like he's always Frank the Tank. I'm going streaking down the right sideline. And I feel like Big Ben is going to hit him with at least one. And at that price point at $21, he's looking mighty fine for me over there. So I like Deontay in this spot. Move it over to the Seahawks. I'm going with that man, Tyler Lockett. Now, we've seen Henry Ruggs. We've seen a lot of other wide receivers go over the top on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Geno, he looked like he was a competent quarterback, last week filling in for Russell Wilson. Got DK on the touchdown pass. So I feel like Tyler Lockett being a little bit cheaper than DK, and with Pittsburgh being susceptible to guys over the top like Jamar Chase, Henry Ruggs, I feel like this is a good spot for Tyler Lockett, especially with Seattle more than likely playing from behind. And so at the superstar, I already kind of mentioned him before, Najee Harris, $29. This Pittsburgh offense flows through Najee, whether Big Ben was going to be hurt or not. And I feel like Mike T wants to get a King Henry type game out of Najee, 300-something yards, 3 toughs. They don't have the offensive line for it, but I feel like he's going to get a lot of volume in the run and pass game, making him mighty worthy of that $29 budget right there. Now, moving on to the Monday Night Football game. This game should be about Josh Allen and what that Buffalo offense is doing, and can A.J. Brown and Julio Jones, put the Titans over the top to compete with the AFC's finest. But nah, it's still about Josh Norman bleeding from his chest. A year removed from that, if you look at the San Francisco 49ers injury report, this dude still has a contusion in his chest from King Henry. So that's the kind of energy that these teams are coming into this game with. And so that's why I'm leaning towards Stephon Diggs as my player with the Buffalo Bills, because I feel like these Bills are going to come out hot. They did it versus the Chiefs to redeem themselves from that loss last year. They're going to do the same thing against the Titans this year. So Stephon Diggs, he's been getting a lot of targets, hasn't really translated to the end zone because Emmanuel Sanders has been going off. We've seen a lot of Dawson Knox. The Titans give up the most fantasy points to wide receivers, and I feel like he's just primed to explode. So that's why I feel like my man Diggsy is going to go off on Monday night. Now flip it over to the Titans. I feel like the Buffalo Bills are going to do anything and everything to stop King Henry from embarrassing them, which means that it's going to be a Ryan Tannehill game. He's known to steal some touchdowns from King Henry in the red zone with his legs, or he may throw it to AJ, Julio, or maybe you sneak in a touchdown the first. But I feel like the offense is going to have to flow through Tannehill because the Bills are going to make sure that anyone but King Henry beats him. And I like that price of Tannehill at $23. And so that means my superstar is going to be the superstar for the Buffalo Bills the past few weeks. And that's Josh Allen. The dude does it with his arm. He does it with his legs. He has a really good matchup against the Titans. They give up the 11 most fantasy points to quarterbacks. And I feel like this dude is just coming into his own, and there's no better way for the Buffalo Bills to establish themselves as the dominant favorite in the AFC by, one, eliminating a team that throws the ball heavily like the Kansas City Chiefs, and then come back and then stomp a team that can run it down your throat like the Titans. So this is a big game for the Bills. I think they're up for the challenge. So now, those are my picks. Let's go ahead and slide on over to the Sportsbook with my girl Minty and see what she got going on.
Welcome to the Sportsbook, everyone. Time for some trends and big bets. And boy, do we have some big bets today. All right, starting with a trend. The Kansas City Chiefs are only 1-6 against the spread their last 7 games as 6.5-point favorites or more. They're 6.5-point favorites against Washington today. And there's tons of bets on this game today. $33,000 and $55,000 on the Chiefs minus 6.5. But let me tell you, sharp money is on Washington today. Another pair of big bets here. We've got $31,500 and $22,000 on the Chargers plus 2.5 and plus 3. They are the public dog today against the Ravens. I'll be back in a bit with my best bets for week 6, guys.
All right, let's get to our first check-in on social media this morning and answer some roster questions. Don't forget to send your questions to the hashtag AskFFL. Our first tweet comes from Mark, and Mark asks, Brandon Cooks, Tyler Lockett, AJ Brown, and Mike Williams. I'm assuming he can only start one. My goodness. Tank, I'm gonna ask you this first. You just talked up Tyler Lockett. I'm imagining it's him or Mike Williams coming off of an injury that you're most interested here?
Man, like, I love Lockett, but I wish I had Russell Wilson throwing that moon ball over Geno Smith. I mean, I like if I'm looking at the potential game script in all of these games, I feel like it's going to have to be out of A.J. Brown or Mike Williams. And then I just feel like that Chargers offense has just been clicking on all cylinders. So I'll slide over to my cousin, Mike Williams, and feel like he's the safer choice with a lot of upside in that matchup against the Ravens.
Let's move to our second question. It is from L.J. Victor, and this person asks, Devontae Booker, Darrell Williams, our first backup questions here, or Robbie Anderson needs one flex in standard. I'm assuming that's half-point PPR standard, since that's the Yahoo standard. I'm gonna go to Andy for this one. No, actually, I'm not. You know what? We'll have that debate later. I'm gonna go to Matt. Yep. Matt, which of these options are you going to go with here?
I was relieved when you were going to go to Andy because it's like, wow, Tank got all the questions with all the quality wide receiver. Like, wow, what a tough one to choose from. It's like, which waiver wire fodder do you want to throw in your lineup this week? It is tough to go between Booker and Williams. I'm pretty and I don't think really look, Robbie Anderson at some point is going to have a big game. The air yard usage is there for him, but it's just really tough to trust. I'm not sure this is the matchup to do it with Sam Darnold behind a bad offensive line with the pass rush for Minnesota kind of cooking right now. So between these two backup running backs, I really like Booker's pass game role, but give me Williams in a game that should just have more touchdown equity overall. It is like these guys are probably back-to-back in rankings, but give me Williams over Booker on this one.
Oh, very interesting you said that, Matt. I might have to use it a little bit later. Andy, now it's your turn. This question comes from DJ, and DJ is looking for a flex in full-point PPR, Cortland Sutton, Brandon Cooks, or the Chicago Bears' very own Khalil Herbert versus the Green Bay Packers. I hear there's a rivalry between these two teams.
Yeah, oh my gosh. I mean, Khalil Herbert looked pretty good last week. I'll give him that. He was effective outside. He was effective between the tackles. You're not starting him here over Cortland Sutton. I'm definitely going Sutton here. I think he's a really strong play. very possible wide receiver 1 week for him against the Vegas Raiders, who've had quite a week. I really think the targets are going to be there for Sutton. Obviously, Judy's still out, Hamler out. It's just all funneled down to him, and he's looked great. He for me is a pretty clear top option here.
I agree. Definitely agree there. We'll debate something else a little bit later. But now it's time for our first break here on Fantasy Football Live. When we come back, we'll take a look at whose stock is trending up and get to some sneaky sleepers with Austin Ekeler. Don't go away.
B, I want the real B.
I feel like I'm a starter. Everybody feel like I'm a starter.
If you don't know me, feel free to judge.
People always ask, will Kevin Love go back to Portland?
If I was wearing a Portland jersey, I mean, that's special. That's playing at home.
Did you talk to LeBron?
We never really talked about those battles. We moved forward from that.
There's some lines that even ambassadors shouldn't cross.
And then there's the load management.
How you feel about that, Dr. J?
I'm Hannah Kaiser, and this is The Bandwagon.
Yeah,
The best way to watch baseball is with an unnecessarily masochistic level of emotional investment. Check out these dance moves. Ohtani unleashed.
Yeah.
Aliens, fan. I don't know if they're watching. Huge fan. It was a socially distanced first pitch. He looks like a female superhero. This week on Humble Proposal, Jason Benetti, Jeff Passan, Shane Bieber. Every morning I wake up and I look at the standings and I'm like, who's out of the running? Nobody. Only the Pirates.
When I'm decorating a space, I'm constantly shopping, even on Yahoo Mail.
Oh, it's so perfect.
Finding the right piece really brings it all together.
Watch free live football. The NFL is on your phone all season long. Watch the NFL live on the Yahoo Sports mobile app.
Welcome back to Fantasy Football Live. It's time now for Fantasy Stock Watch, presented by iShares. Let's take a look at the biggest risers and fallers across the league and see who's trending up right now. Matt, get us started.
Yeah, I think we got to start with one of the biggest risers in fantasy football from like basically undrafted in any format out there, redraft-wise, best ball, everything like that. Kadarius Toney is definitely on the rise for the New York Giants, and I think this is sustainable too. Look, he's not going to have like 13 targets, 10 catches, over 189 yards like he did last week. That's probably going to be his high water mark for the season, but I do believe his place in this offense is sustainable, and the biggest reason why is, you know, last week, like we kind of thought that Kadarius Toney and Sterling Shepard might be both slot receivers, but last week when Toney had this big game, he played 64% of his snaps outside. I think that was pretty crucial to see. There were a lot of pre-draft comparisons between him and Deebo Samuel, and look, like Toney actually might be a faster, more explosive version of that player, but in terms of like being a zone beater, he's not there yet in terms of being a route runner or anything like that against man press coverage, but like the way they're using him as a flanker outside, I believe his role is sustainable. Even with Sterling Shepard back, I think those two guys are going to be the top pass catchers for the New York Giants the rest of the way.
Yeah, fully agree on that. It would just be grossly negligent not to find, I don't know, 8 targets a week for Kadarius Toney. He looks unbelievable right now. Never punch a man in the helmet, though. That's a mistake in almost all circumstances. I want to talk about Joe Burrow, who has been terrific this year, but not for the reasons that we might have expected. I think a lot of us thought coming into the season, you know, Cincinnati last year with Burrow, they played fast, they ran a ton of plays, he was averaging 40 attempts per week, and none of that has been in place this year, but it doesn't matter because he's been incredibly efficient. He's up to 8.8 yards per attempt on the year. That's 2 yards better per attempt than he was at last season. He's completing 72% of his throws, multiple touchdowns in every week so far, and that narrative about Jamar Chase and the former college teammate thing that might have, you know, maybe you didn't buy it, you should buy it. Like, he's a star, and he's made Burrow a bit of a fantasy star. He's been a little bit quiet to this point, not necessarily getting all the fantasy buzz that he should, but his receiving core is great, and he gets the Lions this week. That defense allows 10 yards per attempt on the season. Burrow is going to go off here. Matt, give us a faller.
Yeah, ironically enough, you just hyped up Joe Burrow and talked about how great his receivers are, but I'm going to give the faller to one of his pass catchers, and it's Tyler Boyd. The biggest problem is exactly what you mentioned. The overall passing pie in Cincinnati is so much smaller than we thought it would be because they want to establish the run and protect Joe Burrow, and I think that's probably good for Burrow overall. It is leading to some of this efficiency, but the overall target volume is just down for this passing game, and we've seen it so far with Tyler Boyd. In games without T. Higgins, he has a 33.5% target share, which again, it's a target share of a smaller pie anyway, so the overall volume is just not there. But in games with T. Higgins, he's got down at 20% of the targets, and he only has a 6.4 ADOT anyways, so that's not great. He's a guy that needs a lot of volume to get home for your fantasy team. The matchup with the Lions is good. I think you can start him as a low-end flex play this week, but I think it's time to adjust your expectations for Tyler Boyd. He's not that great floor play like he is every single week because the overall passing volume in Cincinnati's down, and he's just not getting the juicy, high-equity targets like a guy like Jamar Chase.
My faller is going to be Robbie Anderson, and I knew that I was going to include him in this segment this week when I was trying to negotiate a trade with somebody in one of my leagues, and I tossed Robbie Anderson's name in there as like a sweetener, and he was like, "No, I like this deal better without Robbie Anderson. Let's just take him out of there, and it's better." So that's kind of where the market's at on Robbie right now. His single game high in receiving yards this season is 57. That's not everything we'd expected from the renewal of the Sam Darnold-Robbie Anderson partnership. And even that game, that was just a one-catch game. He happened to hit a big one. And that was pretty much the only big one that he's hit all season. The targets weren't there early in the year. Over the last couple weeks, he's seen 18 targets, and I can kind of talk myself into that. But for the season, he's only caught 41% of all of his targets. Hasn't really done anything in these last couple of games. And you mentioned earlier, the pass rush this week for Minnesota, I don't know. It's not going to be a deep shot game to Robbie Anderson. So I'm really down on him. Not looking great. Remember, folks, get your share of progress with iShares. Visit iShares.com to find out more. Liz, take it away.
Thank you, Andy. So we're into bye weeks and injuries are mounting, so let's talk sleepers, and let's kick it off with a player who appears to be back to health. Okay, vintage Carson Wentz, we see you coming off of an interception-free 400-yard and two touchdown effort on Monday night. I think Wentz deserves a second look. He's actually the QB3 in deep ball completion percentage and could be feeling himself versus a Houston defense that's admittedly better versus the pass than they are the run, but still has only managed 8 sacks on the season. I get it, the ceiling here isn't really high, but the floor seems pretty solid, and given some of the options this week, that could be inviting. I think Wentz could sneak inside of the top 15 at the position this week. Speaking of sneaking, I gotta tell you, I feel like Dan Brown tiptoeing around the Vatican trying to Da Vinci Code the Patriots backfield. I know that I should quit, but every week this puzzle shifts, and now we got Damian Harris trying to play through bruised ribs and coughing up the ball at the goal line for the second time this season. How do I not speculate on Ramondre Stevenson? He was finally active last week after apparently atoning for his own fumbling sins. And after a buzzy summer, by the way, this summer that everyone's talking about, this buzzy summer, Ivan Fears, the team's running backs coach, compared him to LeGarrette Blount. We know what LeGarrette Blount does at the goal line. That sort of touchdown upside, particularly with such scarcity at the position, is too much for me to ignore. Or, more likely, I'll pay, but, it can't be much worse than starting Kenneth Gainwell on Thursday night. Still stings. Okay, all of this talk about running backs reminds me that Austin and I discussed big game sleepers in this week's episode of Ekeler's Edge, so let's get to that now and uncover a few more under-the-radar plays. Your Chargers face the Ravens in a game featuring fantasy stars like Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, Justin Herbert, obviously friend of the show, and you, of course. But who is your sleeper in this one? Maybe someone a little under the radar.
Donald Parham, our tight end for the Chargers, man. I thought he was going to be a sleeper, coming into the season, just because of how he's utilized and, especially in the red zone. huge human at 6'9". You can put anyone on him, but he can reach his hands up or even jump and catch, red zone balls up over the top of you, which he's done in the past 2 games now. I think that's where the sleeper aspect comes in. If he's getting in the end zone, he might pop, 10, 11, 12 points. If you're in a spot where, you need a tight end, because he's rostered 1% I'm seeing right here, a fantasy league.
I love that pick. I do the sleepers column every week for Yahoo Fantasy, and I've been tracking Parham. You mentioned 2 weeks in a row he's found the end zone. Not only that, but Baltimore has given up the 3rd most fantasy points to opposing tight ends. So the matchup is working very well in his favor. And we know there are going to be a lot of points in this game. At least we're expecting a lot of points. The Browns, who you just played, host the undefeated Cardinals. And again, there's going to be fantasy talent all over the field in this matchup. But which player do you like as a under the radar option?
I think, a sleeper that could possibly come out of this game, who's actually had some just action throughout the season, is Rondale Moore. The Cardinals utilize him in the running game and the passing game. And I think when you're getting touches, I think that's what's most important. They're going to keep incorporating him into the offense. So I can see Rondale Moore making an impact and, coming alive this game.
I really like that pick because when you look at his skill set matched with what the Browns defense has been doing, it's a perfect marriage. The Browns are consistently giving up big plays, and we know that Rondale Moore is a big play player with that crazy sub 4.3 speed. I think he's a great sleeper for week 6. All right, finally, we're going to turn to the nation's capital where the Washington football team will host the Kansas City Chiefs. What kind of sleeper are we looking for in this matchup?
Yeah, I think, all eyes are going to be on the tight end position for Washington.
Which is interesting, right? Because you've got Travis Kelce in this matchup, but I totally agree with you.
Yeah, Logan Thomas going down. Who's coming in to fill that role? And, right now it's Ricky Seals-Jones. Heineke's been talking about their chemistry, and now they're going to have even more of an opportunity to show that.
I love this pick, Austin. I talked up Ricky Seals-Jones on FFL last Sunday in a matchup against the Chiefs where there should be a ton of points available. I think he is a great play. And in week 5, he still drew 8 targets. In fact, you already picked him up.
I did.
Thomas, right?
Logan went down and so, well, guess what? Ricky was stepping up, making plays, and he was available in my league, which is crazy because I have 20 people. But yeah, I was able to get him. So, I'm having high hopes for him as well.
All right, it's time to help out the people here, Tank, with a little make your pick action where we just try to get some flex plays for the folks out there. First one comes in from Stephanie. Some quality options here. We need 2 flex spots out of this group. Michael Pittman, TJ Hawkinson, Kadarius Toney, and Tim Patrick. All pretty appealing here, Tank. I think Michael Pittman is in a range, though, where you play this guy like every single week. Liz talked up Carson Wentz a little earlier, like the matchup there. And Kadarius Toney as well, how do you put that juice back on your fantasy bench after what we saw last week? Tank, there's a chance that, I just hope Kadarius Toney lines up away from Jalen Ramsey as much as possible. Not because of the coverage aspect, but if, there's a guy who could get Toney to throw another punch out there, it's definitely Jalen Ramsey. So, let's keep those 2 away from each other. But I do think that these 2 guys got to be in your lineup.
No, absolutely. I feel like you gave all the great points, and man, just thinking about Toney and Ramsey scrapping, hey, that's pretty funny. But when I look at the Denver Broncos, Reverend hit it right on the head. I think Cortland Sutton is going to be that guy, and if it's not Cortland Sutton, I look at Teddy Bridgewater focusing on Fant in the red zone, and then when you look at TJ Hawkinson, I think he was that focal point for the Lions offense. They haven't really connected too much the past couple weeks. At the same time, he's been dealing with the knee injury. So I really like Kadarius Toney in that matchup. Probably playing catch-up against the Rams. And then Pittman, I think that could be a Jonathan Taylor game. But, having an effective run game can open up some deep over routes for Pittman in the deep areas of the zone. So I really like that as well.
Yeah, just way too much volume for Michael Pittman right now to go away from him. All right, let's get to our next one here. This one comes in from Mike in half PPR format. We've got Chase Edmonds, Alex Collins, Harris. I'm assuming that's Damian Harris, and Zach Moss as well. We got first names, people, first names. I know you're not going with Randy Moss. Okay, so it is Damian Harris. All right, cool. We're all good. I'm fine. We're doing good. All right, Tank, you take this one while I try to collect myself here.
Man, if I had to go with these, Chase Edmonds, I like him as a pass catcher. Really doesn't get a lot of burn in the red zone. I like James Conner there, so probably have to fade him. Damian Harris is going to be healthy. It's hard to trust those Bill Belichick running backs, and Collins has a really tough matchup. I'll probably have to go with Collins and hoping that Geno Smith is going to be competent and that Collins can get in the red zone, fall into the end zone, and then Zach Moss probably as well, playing against that Titans defense that's friendly against the run and the pass, and hopefully Josh Allen, those boys do what they're supposed to do, meaning that they'll be playing from a lead, and then that'll get Zach Moss in the end zone, you know, maybe a touchdown coming in late as they're trying to run out the clock or something like that.
Yeah, that Bills defense being as good as it is has been huge for Zach Moss because he's like the guy that they want to use in positive game scripts. So I think he's a guy that I'm thinking is like an every week RB2. So he's my favorite option. I agree. Alex Collins would be in consideration as the number 2 option as well. But that is going to do it for us, Tank. We really helped the people out there. It is a running back mess out there. So let's continue the theme here and send it over to Liz and Andy.
Yeah, it's fantasy face-off time. And listen, we're mixing up the matchups this week. Let the record show that this right here is the winner's bracket. Obviously, Liz took care of business with Tank, and I took care of business with Matt. So now we are facing off. And we're talking about a pair of running backs. Listen, I've been set up. I was set up in the last block of the show when Liz teed up Matt for his thoughts on this very matchup. You love to see the teamwork, I guess. It's Darrell Williams, it's Devontae Booker. It's 2 of the big waiver claims of the week. Liz, tell us why you and Matt like Darrell Williams.
Well, Matt mentioned Darrell Williams' touchdown upside. He's already scored twice this season, so fine. Also, he's been with the team since 2018, so there's familiarity with the system. And I'm going to take the running back that's frankly attached to the better quarterback and the better offense and is in a really good matchup because the most surprising thing I think about the Washington football team hasn't in fact been Taylor Heineke. I Tylered him, not this week. It's not been Taylor Heineke, but the fact that the defense has been so bad, they've given up the most fantasy points to opposing running backs over the past 2 weeks. So I like the offense, I like the matchup. What's not to like?
Oh, sure, you can chase after good offenses and good players and high-scoring systems and all that. That's fine. I guess that works. I'm going to go with a guy who never comes off the field, and that was Devontae Booker last week. He played 88% of the snaps. I don't think he's necessarily the most dazzling running back, but there's nobody else who's going to get backfield touches for that team. 88% of the snaps last week, caught 3 passes, had a garbage time touchdown, had a not quite garbage time touchdown on a short yardage carry. He's just going to get all of the touches here. Definitely going to be 20 plus. Jerick McKinnon last week played about 1/3 of the snaps for the Chiefs, so we're going to see a little bit of him. So for me, this is just Booker purely on volume. I don't know if my argument necessarily won that one, but hey, it's time to take another break on Fantasy Football Live. When we come back, oh man, when we come back, we're going to talk player props. We're going to check in on what sure looks like it's become a turnover fest in the London game as well.
B, I want the real B.
I feel like I'm a starter. Everybody feel like I'm a starter.
If you don't know me, feel free to judge.
People always ask, will Kevin Love go back to Portland?
If I was wearing a Portland jersey, I mean, that's special. That's playing at home.
Did you talk to LeBron?
We never really talked about those battles. We moved forward from that.
There's some lines that even ambassadors shouldn't cross.
And then there's the load management.
How you feel about that, Dr. J?
I'm Hannah Kaiser, and this is The Bandwagon.
Yeah, man, let's roll.
The best way to watch baseball is with an unnecessarily masochistic level of emotional investment. Check out these dance moves. Ohtani unleashed.
Yeah.
Aliens, fan. I don't know if they're watching. Huge fan. It was a socially distanced first pitch. He looks like a female superhero. This week on Humble Proposal, Jason Benetti, Jeff Passan, Shane Bieber. Every morning I wake up and I look at the standings and I'm like, who's out of the running? Nobody. Only the Pirates.
When I'm decorating a space, I'm constantly shopping, even on Yahoo Mail.
Oh, it's so perfect.
Finding the right piece really brings it all together.
Watch free live football. The NFL is on your phone all season long. Watch the NFL live on the Yahoo Sports mobile app.
All right, we're going to check back in on the London game. The score is still 13-17 Jacksonville, and we are in the fourth quarter, about 11 minutes left in this one. Some interesting trends going on. Let's give it a little bit, even if Tank doesn't want to, a little bit of air here. Two things that I noticed on the Miami side. You've got Mike Gesicki, second in team targets with 8. He converts 7 of those for over 100 yards. And a little bit more tilting, though I guess we should have come to expect this. Jalen Waddle leading the team in terms of targets with 10, but he is the bottom in terms of yardage. 7 grabs for just 48 yards. Nothing like seeing a guy with 4.3 speed average 6.9 yards per reception. Andy, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's not exactly the usage you'd want from Waddle, but hey, he did find the end zone. That was good. Mike Gesicki has had a really active game. He had the single dumbest hurdle I think I've ever seen in NFL history. He just jumped into a man's arms. That was awesome in the first half. Another thing I noticed about this game, and I've had to like triple check it, Miami plays next week. That's just weird to me. They're coming off a London game and they have to play the Falcons in week 7.
Andy, I think you just manifested some more good juju for Jalen Waddle, because as you were speaking, he found the end zone for a second time. Now, Tank, that's some positive thing to talk about. I want your takes on this game.
I guess it is. I think we've been waiting for Tua to come to life, and hey, I guess all it takes is to go up against a bunch of Jags, and that'll do it for you. So Tua looks healthy. I think it took him sitting out and saying that Jacoby Brissett would actually throw the ball to Mike Gesicki. He's like, oh, okay, this guy's kind of fast and kind of good, and I think he used to do that for me last year, but now maybe he'll do it again this year. So Gesicki's getting off. But what I think I've noticed most about the Jaguars is, like Andy was mentioning, that Robinson is actually getting the ball. Like, he's the #1 guy. I really like how they're using my man Agnew in the offense. Like, I don't know if that's going to be a trend that continues, but he definitely has some juice. And then Marvin catching the deep ball down the sideline. I think he's going to continue to be Trevor Lawrence's guy, and they're always going to be playing from behind. So you always get a lot of questions about Marvin Jones. You have to understand he's playing in a bad offense, so it's not going to be consistent, but he's always going to be that guy, playing in the matchup where they're trying to play catch up. He's going to get a lot of targets. More than likely he's going to get a touchdown, so he should be a solid play for you.
Name another fantasy show that gives you Agnew nugs. Thank you, Tank. Thank you for engaging. All right, it's time to get back into the sportsbook. Minty and Matt are checking in on some player props. Guys, what do you have?
Absolutely love to see Jamal Agnew playing the role that they had pegged for the guy they took in the first round this year. Give me a break, Jags. It's mind-numbing. So let's move on from the Jacksonville Jaguars and let's talk some player props. Minty, love doing this segment with you every single week. Why don't you kick us off with your first one here?
Okay, this is going to a kicker who got a little bit of attention last week. Evan McPherson, over 1.5 field goals. This is even money. It's plus 100. Now, to say that the Lions defense will hold off the Bengals long and far enough for McPherson to kick 2 field goals is kind of a stretch, but I think Detroit will surprise us today, and I say Evan McPherson will not miss any field goals today. I like the over in this.
I love it. Minty talking about kickers. I'm going to be super safe here and just talk about one of the stars of the NFL, and Tyreek Hill. Pretty light here, 81.5. I'm going over on this one in his receiving yards. Look, Tyreek Hill is the most explosive player in the NFL. We know that, and Washington's defense has been blowing coverages left and right all year. I love Ron Rivera coming out and saying, like, oh, yeah, the defense is fine. It's just like 4 or 5 plays per game that we're really screwing up. Well, those screw-ups are leading to, like, huge plays and touchdowns. And is there, like, anybody else who could really take advantage of that more than Tyreek Hill? No, I would be stunned if he doesn't get in the end zone once today at least and clear. Like, I could see this being one of those, like, games he had against Tampa last year where he goes, like, over 200 yards, scores a couple times. Like, I really love Tyreek Hill in this matchup.
I like that one too. I am going to go over to Nelson Aguilar. His reception set at 3.5. He's averaged about 3 per game, and today he's going up against the Cowboys. Oh, the Cowboys? Yes, the Cowboys, who are allowing the most passing yards per game. Gonna be tricky, but I believe he can reach 4. All he needs is 4 catches, so I like it.
Yeah, definitely. I think Nelson Aguilar is not the worst flex play in the world here for fantasy football, too, in a potentially high-scoring game as the Patriots play negative game script. Well, Minty's talking about kickers, and she's taking risks on, like, the Patriots' second-best receiver. I love that she's playing risky today. I'm going to stay safe once again and go with one of the other stars of the NFL, and Lamar Jackson. I'm going to take the over on his rushing yards here, 69.5 at -115. Look, this matchup with the LA Chargers, we talk about it basically every week, that they take away those explosive pass plays, but they absolutely are gettable on the ground. 27th in explosive run rate allowed right now. And look, you look at that Ravens backfield, it's Latavius Murray, it's Tyson Williams basically like thrown on the shelf, it's Devonta Freeman. Like, it's not the Ravens run game of old, but Lamar Jackson isn't just the Lamar Jackson of old. He is a better, more improved version of himself this year. Like, if somebody's going to exploit this Chargers run defense, Minty, I think it's got to be Lamar Jackson. But is this line a little too high, or what do you think?
I don't think so. You always got to take the overs on Lamar's rushing yards. So I really like this play, especially against that Chargers run defense, who is pretty bad at defending against the run.
Absolutely. Well, Minty and I will be back later here on Yahoo Sports, 11:30 a.m. Pacific, 2:30 p.m. Eastern. We are going to be doing our Yahoo Sportsbook live show. We do it every single week. It's awesome. Make sure you send your questions to @Yahoo Sportsbook, @Yahoo Fantasy. We'll be doing the live bets. We'll be doing the upcoming games. And Minty, I'm 20-10 on my player props this year, so absolutely make sure you come back for that one right here on Yahoo Sports. Again, I'm probably due for a big crash, so make sure you come watch that.
All right, it's over under number 2, and we are not discussing a kicker here. That's Minty's department. We are instead going to talk about Chase Claypool. He's been good lately. And we're going to set the number for his receiving yards at 89.5. Listen, he's hit this in 2 straight weeks, and he's facing a Seattle defense that allows over 300 passing yards per game. I can easily make the argument here, no Juju Smith-Schuster in this one, so presumably that might mean an extra target or 2 for Claypool. But I just have a difficult time taking the over on any player who is tied to Ben Roethlisberger right now. You look at Ben on the season, his intended air yards per target, it's just 6.9. That's like bottom third in the league. He's only averaging 6.6 yards per attempt, and somehow on all these short throws, he's not really completing very many. He's only completing about 63% of his passes. So I just can't do it. I'm hoping for a touchdown from Claypool. I got him everywhere. But I'm going to take the under on this one. Matt, what say you?
Andy, you're making so many good points there about how this is such a great spot for Chase Claypool, and then you hard turned on it and went to the under. No, give me the over on this one. I think not having Juju Smith-Schuster out there is huge because it's going to allow Chase Claypool to bump into 2 wide receiver sets, which has basically been the thing that's been holding him back so far. Obviously, his quarterback too is going to hold him back. That's going to hold the entire team back. But I think Chase Claypool being out there in 12 personnel and 2 wide receiver sets, this is huge news for Chase Claypool. We also saw him rip 2 big plays from the slot last week. Deontay Johnson's only been targeted out of the slot, I think, on 5% of his overall targets. So I think maybe we see Chase Claypool take some of those Juju reps as that big slot receiver. Give me the over against a really, really bad Seahawks defense. I think this is huge news for Chase Claypool.
Oh, I actually hope you're right. Tank, break this tie.
Come closer. Come closer. Now breathe in. Doesn't that smell extra minty? Because I'm going with the under. I understand all this stuff you saying. Chase Claypool has gone over this number twice in the past couple weeks and all that. And trust me, I need this Pittsburgh Steelers offense to go off too, but not Claypool. I need it to be my man Deontay Johnson streaking on the outside. But this is why I have the issue with Claypool. We understand, if you play stocks like AMC, GME, even Bitcoin earlier this year, they go sky high, but you eventually have to come down and cool off. I feel like after going 2 weeks in a row, Big Ben dealing with the injuries and everything else, this is going to be his cooling off period. I feel like the Steelers want this to be a Najee Harris game. Claypool is also dealing with the hammy too. Even though he's going to play, that hammy may come into this. You may come into play. So that's why I feel like you may have to temper your expectations. Chill out. Get a little minty. Cool off. He's going to be fine. But 89.5, nah, we going under that.
Oh man, you actually lured me in. I'm like 6 inches closer to the camera than I normally am. That was fantastic. Matt, save us here.
I'm stepping back here. I'm as far away from the camera as I possibly could be in this chair. Liz, we got to check in on our chats here on the social networks. Let's first jump in here for Nancy on Facebook. So chat room, you know, if you got some good ones, hit the emojis there. Nancy on Facebook's got a tight end debate, and look, I got Tyler Higbee everywhere, so I'm glad that we're talking about him in this one. But Liz, Dawson Knox or Tyler Higbee in a half PPR format, which one of those two options is more appealing for you?
Oh my goodness, that is a tough one. I love Tyler Higbee, have him a lot of places as well, but I don't think, I mean, if I'm going to argue you should start Darrell Williams because of the offense and quarterback that he's attached to, and you see what Dawson Knox has been doing in Buffalo and in the red area of the field, like, yes, Matt Stafford and the Rams, what great choices are awesome offenses to be attached to, but I'm not going to stop using Dawson Knox on Primetime. He's like a top 5 play this week.
Yeah, I agree with you. I like Tyler Higbee as more of a floor play. I don't think it's a bad spot at all, but how can you pull Dawson Knox out of your lineup given what I think he's got a sustainable role in this offense, and it's coming at the expense of Cole Beasley. So we shall see how that one goes. All right, Brett sends us in a good question here on Facebook. It's got like a brain emoji, the skull, the ghost, which I do love to be in the spirit of Halloween here. He's in a pickle. Full PPR needs 2 options: Michael Pittman, Brandon Cooks, Tyler Lockett, and D. Williams. Again, I'm assuming that is Darrell Williams here. Liz, this is a tough one to pick. I mean, like I said, I think Pittman is a guy that you play every single week, especially in full PPR, because he gets those targets. Like, he's the overall volume hog of this offense, no question about it. And listen, I'm gonna let you pick the second one here, because I know this is my personal bias with Tyler Lockett, but I don't think like Geno Smith coming in is the worst thing in the world for Tyler Lockett. Like, I think that Geno actually is going to not be as much like of a boomer bust passer as Russell Wilson. And I feel stupid for saying that, because Russell Wilson's like one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and Geno Smith is Geno Smith. But like from a yards per completion standpoint, I could see this being more of a high catch total for Tyler Lockett.
I think that the Geno Smith thing, and Minty and I are going to talk about this a little bit later, like the last time he was a starter was week 13 of the 2017 season. And like he was throwing to Travis King in that one. Like he didn't have DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. So, you know, to quote Andy Barron's, the tiebreaker is always talent. And so when I look at these 3 options, and by the way, I feel this pain because I have Pittman and Cooks, who I'm constantly debating in the flex position. I agree with you on Pittman. I think the touchdown equity there is too good to pass up. But when I think about my ceiling and I think about, you know, what could happen, I have to move towards Tyler Lockett, because I think that Geno Smith has everyone's overreacting because we haven't heard from him in so long, but he did not look terrible at all. He looked quite good, in fact, last week in relief of Russell Wilson. So I'm going to agree with you and say that Tyler Lockett is the higher ceiling play of these options.
Yeah, I totally understand the risk with Geno, because like the most crucial thing he's done in the last like 4 years is break Eli Manning's start streak for the New York Giants, inexplicably sending that whole team into flames. But I agree, like I think he's actually a quality backup, and Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf will be just fine. We got to take another break here on Fantasy Football Live, but when we come back, we know that Tank is probably going to think about plugging Ryan Tannehill into his daily fantasy lineup. We'll see who the rest of his team looks like as well, and we'll do some more over-unders. We'll be right back.
B, I want the real B.
I feel like I'm a starter. Everybody feel like I'm a starter.
If you don't know me, feel free to judge.
People always ask, will Kevin Love go back to Portland?
If I was wearing a Portland jersey, I mean, that's special. That's playing at home.
Did you talk to LeBron?
We never really talked about those battles. We moved forward from that.
There's some lines that even ambassadors shouldn't cross.
And then there's the load management.
How you feel about that, Dr. J?
I'm Hannah Kaiser, and this is The Bandwagon. The best way to watch baseball is with an unnecessarily masochistic level of emotional investment. Check out these dance moves. Ohtani unleashed. Aliens, fan. I don't know if they're watching. Huge fan. It was a socially distanced first pitch. He looks like a female superhero. This week on Humble Proposal, Jason Benetti, Jeff Passan, Shane Bieber. Every morning I wake up and I look at the standings and I'm like, who's out of the running? Nobody. Only the Pirates.
When I'm decorating a space, I'm constantly shopping, even on Yahoo Mail.
Oh, it's so perfect.
Finding the right piece really brings it all together.
Watch free live football. The NFL is on your phone all season long. Watch the NFL live on the Yahoo Sports mobile app.
All right, as promised, we've got an over-under here on Ryan Tannehill. 19.9 fantasy points going against the Bills on Monday Night Football, and I'm going to be the big dummy that takes the over on this line when we're talking about a great Bills defense. I mean, they are just unbelievable, crushing it in every single category. They can just throw waves and waves of pass rush at you with all of these different rushers up front, which is just great considering the Titans' offensive line is struggling right now, and Ryan Tannehill is not great under pressure. But let me actually make the case here. The positive, I'm taking the over, right? That's what I'm doing here. He's actually cleared 20 rushing yards in 3 games this year. I think that floor will sustain him here. I also just think, like, look, there's some touchdown positive regression coming for the guy. He's at a 3.5% touchdown rate. That has been up like 6.9, 7.7 the last 2 years. Playing in negative game script, I think we're actually going to have to see the Titans passing offense open up with A.J. Brown and Julio Jones back, so I will take the over here. I'll be the positive one. Minty, I have a feeling you are definitely, absolutely not going to agree with me.
Well, you know me. And like you mentioned earlier, the Bills defense, one of the best in the league. They're going to pressure Tannehill, and they're going to force mistakes and possibly some turnovers. So I'm seeing more mistakes than production. And obviously, Tannehill's probably going to give the ball to Derrick Henry, the most lethal weapon on their team. So yeah, I got to go under here.
Probably a safe bet. Liz, what say you? I kind of half argued against myself, so I don't even know if you're really breaking a tie here, but let's get your take on this one.
Well, you know, last week, Matt, Minty and I both took the under, and you took the over on Hollywood Brown, I believe, and you were correct, and that worked out nice for me personally, even if I was wrong professionally. I'm going to employ that same philosophy because I need Ryan Tannehill to do something, particularly in a matchup against you. So I'm going to take the under here. You guys mentioned the Bills defense. They are #1 in pass and run defensive DVOA. My goodness. And also, like, we're talking about these receivers being back. Well, A.J. Brown, the reports are coming out that he's not going to see a full complement of snaps until week 10. It's week 6. Also, Julio Jones coming off of a hammy. What do we know about soft tissue issues and Julio Jones? They're not great. So, yeah, I'm going to take the under here. But I hope I'm wrong.
Liz, I don't think you're going to need any help from Ryan Tannehill to beat me in this matchup. If it's the team I'm thinking of here, that team is dust. It's cooked. It's finished. Doesn't matter. Let's not talk about it anymore. Let's get to important matters in the fantasy courtroom.
Oh, important matters. You have no idea how important. We're talking deadbeat fantasy managers this week, and this is a passion of mine. Our case this week comes to us from C. Bowman. Bowman writes, a team has stopped checking their roster and has their QB, Jameis Winston, on the bench. Some think the commish should add him to the starting lineup. Well, it's not really helping this week, right? Jameis is on a bye, but he's got a great string of matchups coming up moving forward, and you can't have an empty spot there. Listen, there are very few things that damage the legitimacy of a league and suck the fun out of a league quite like a zombie team that has been abandoned by its manager. I'm gonna assume that all reasonable steps have been taken here to sort of re-engage this fantasy manager, right? Including public shaming right here on Fantasy Court. That's the final step. But you want to contact their employer. You want to contact their parents, their friends, their family, everybody. We got to get them back managing the team. Commissioners, you guys have a duty to curate your leagues, to find committed and competitive managers, and then to step in if they stop competing. This doesn't happen in very many of my leagues, but when it does, yeah, we need commissioner intervention here. It is the only thing. Because we can't have, most fantasy leagues, we have an imbalanced schedule, right? So not everybody is just going to be gifted W's against this roster with empty spots in the active lineup. That's just terrible. So bottom line, we have to take action against this deadbeat, and you're probably not going to be able to get them. You're not going to be able to spur them on to begin making lineup changes again. So yes, set their lineup for them at a minimum. No, we're not making trades with their lineup. We're not making waiver claims with their lineup. I don't actually even hate it if you wait until all waiver claims have been processed and then you make a couple of free agent ads to cover injuries, because we cannot have a team carrying empty roster spots into weekly matchups. Can't do it. Absolutely forbidden. Case closed.
Oh, yes. What it do, baby? It's your boy T-Money coming with my week 6 Ballers on a Budget. Now, we're going to give you a little bit of chalk and we're going to give you a little bit of contrarian plays this week. So roll with me. Now, at quarterback, I'm going with Baker Mayfield. Like, I understand, like, the Arizona Cardinals, like, they give up, I believe, the 8th fewest fantasy quarterback points. But listen, man, I know he's only thrown 4 touchdowns, but no Nick Chubb, no Chandler Jones. Like, the media has been on this dude's neck. Stephen A. Smith has been on this dude's neck all week. Like, Baker has even responded to it on social media. Like, if this isn't the time where he comes out, balls out, and connects with OBJ against Kyler Murray and what that Arizona offense could do, I don't know what it is. And so if I'm going to roll the dice on that narrative at $20, I feel like it's a solid play. Now at running back, we're going to go a little chalk. We're going to go Darrell Williams, $17 going against the Washington football team. There's going to be a lot of points scored in this game. We understand that my man CEH is going to be out for a while with the MCL. This dude has already shown that he's competent in this offense. They like to use him in the run and in the pass game. I understand Jared McKinnon is there, but I feel like he'll likely get most of the volume. High-scoring environment. I like rolling the dice. Really cheap play at $17, so I really like Darrell Williams in this space. Now we're going back to another contrarian. My man Hollywood Brown going against the Chargers, like my man with the best hair in the business. Matt Harmon already said like how the Chargers refuse to give up the deep balls in the pass game. I understand that, and they're really good at it. I will also say that Henry Ruggs a couple weeks ago was able to catch a 50-yard bomb against them, and so I really trust, them trying to, stop Lamar, try to stop that Baltimore Ravens run game and being able to pop at least one deep shot over the top. And I believe like if you can get that from Hollywood Brown at only $17, I mean, that's a great price for him and going for all that upside. And he's been really good. Actually, he's been damn good besides the one game against Detroit when he had the dropsies. Now at tight end, another chalk player that we've been talking about a lot, Ricky Seals-Jones. Like, this dude is only $11. Logan Thomas was the target monster when he was in the game. Heineke said he has the chemistry with Ricky Seals-Jones. Only $11. We expect a lot of points to be scored in this game, so he's an easy throwaway play at $11 where you get in a high-scoring environment. Hopefully he gets a touchdown, but he's not going to kill your lineup. He only needs a little bit to, cover up for that $11 that you're spending in that section of your lineup. So those are my plays. And remember, the T is for the money. And the money is something that you will not have in your wallet if you do not get these boys in your lineup. So now, Producer Dan, let's go on to these standards now because Queen Lizzie is still, ruling the throne. My man Andy actually won last week, so the revenue's there. They're actually pulling away because Harmon and I were the only dummies to play New York Giants in our lineup. Saquon took him out. DJ took me out. Minty came up on us, and so, like, she's come up, in our range. Those two are still pulling away, but, hey, I mean, everyone's still in it right now, and it's only week 6. I like it. But, Lizzie, you have the throne, so do what you do.
Thank you so much, Tank. And you can still get in on the action in Daily Fantasy this morning on Yahoo. Our big $1 million baller contest is open and you can win cash prizes. There's $150K in guaranteed overlay and first place takes home $100,000 plus an entry into the first ever Yahoo Fantasy Football Championship Live Finals. Visit the Daily Fantasy Football lobby and join in on the fun.
I could not be more excited for this week's segment because I get to talk to someone that I have come to truly enjoy and appreciate in the fantasy space. Linda Godfrey is a co-host of Fantasy Besties, and for those of you who enjoy some Oklahoma State and Big 12 athletics, she's also the host of the Locked On Pokes podcast. She is a riot of a human being who you should be following on Twitter at Lindellians. Linda, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
You've been a kicker enthusiast for a long time, perhaps even a greater kicker enthusiast than me, if that is possible. And you've been producing these phenomenal weekly kicker tiers on Twitter. It's just free. It's just free content sitting out there on Twitter. That's amazing. Did week 5 shake your faith in the position at all? I'm not sure that kickers have ever been so bad in the current era.
They quite literally haven't. It was a historical missed extra point week in the Super Bowl era, so that was brutal. But like at one point, I had to stop getting mad about it and just like laugh through the madness. Lots of misses, but we got to the end of it okay, and hopefully can put it completely behind us.
One of the talking points of the people who want to ban kickers from fantasy football is this notion that the position is random in some way. But I mean, you actually do a lot of projecting, so I wonder if you just want to take a moment to counter that, because it's clearly not entirely random.
Right, and there's lots of different things to look at. People often ask under my tier tweets like what I put into how I organize those, and it's a lot of offense and defense, who they're playing against. I don't look so much to the dome or like in or out of a dome, but how often they're willing to kick field goals. I mean, you're not going to play the Chargers kicker ever because Brandon Staley doesn't care. He'll go for it on 4th and 9. Whereas Bill Belichick, you've seen him throw out a kicker in the pouring rain, and an injured kicker at that. So he's definitely more likely to play his kicker, and those opportunities mean a lot. So that's what I look at.
Before I ditch the kicker topic entirely, because I'm sure the producers want me to, who's just one or two guys who are out there widely available in a ton of leagues who people can just go scoop right now and have an advantage over the balance of the season?
Well, I talked about Nick Folk. He's rostered in 33% of Yahoo leagues. They have the most field goal attempts, and the coach has no problem putting him in the game. He's got 4 from 40 plus, 2 from 50 plus. Chase McLaughlin is another, rostered in 27% of leagues. He's perfect on the season. He's only got 9 attempts, but 3 of them have been from 50 plus yards. So that's a kicker that I'm definitely keeping an eye on.
Who are some other buy low candidates that you're interested in right now?
Stephon Diggs is a guy that we all drafted as like the wide receiver 3 before the season started, and he certainly hasn't matched that ADP. He's wide receiver 25 in full PPR. Leads the bill in targets, yards, receptions. He's got the Titans, a bye week, then Dolphins, Jaguars, and Jets on his schedule coming up. He had 2 for 5 against Kansas City, so it's the perfect time to go buy him on that down week, and then he's got a bye week. So if you can get him for even if it's pretty on target for value, I think he's a perfect go get. Touchdowns are gonna come eventually. He's got 1 on the season, but they're gonna be there.
Linda, thank you so much for joining us this week. It's always a pleasure to catch up with you. Again, everyone should be following, if you're following me, you should be following Linda on Twitter. It is at Lindellions, LINDELLIONS. Just an absolutely great follow. Thanks again.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Let's check back to Twitter for some more viewer questions at the hashtag AskFFL. This first one comes from Mr. Alchemist. Ooh, I like that name. Jacoby Myers, AJ Brown, Sterling Shepard, or Cortland Sutton. Andy, you talked up Cortland Sutton a little bit earlier. I think he's probably the best of these options. It's a flex in a full point PPR league. Are AJ Brown or Sterling Shepard returning from that hamstring injury any more enticing to you, though?
Yeah, well, it's the right format for Sterling Shepard, right? We can assume that he's going to see something like 8 to 10 targets, but no, this is going to be Cortland Sutton for me. I'm expecting 10 targets from him, a really good shot at finding the end zone. If this were a healthy and fully operational A.J. Brown, I'd certainly be tempted, but Sutton has really passed the eye test. We don't have a healthy A.J. Brown right now, so this is pretty clearly Cortland Sutton for me.
Matt, this next question is coming to you. It is from Don. It's a running backs question, a backup running backs question. In fact, Darrell Williams, who you talked about a little bit earlier at Washington, or Chuba Hubbard versus Minnesota half-point PPR.
Close one here. I like Chuba Hubbard, coming off a pretty decent game last week. Obviously, CMC on IR. He's going to have a few weeks to prove himself there. I believe they're kind of turned into him as the guy, but I'm going to go with Darrell Williams. Again, just a proven player. Like, I don't think that you're going to notice the drop-off from Clyde Edwards-Helaire to Darrell Williams. Probably not going to be a ton of passing game equity for Darrell Williams just because they weren't throwing the ball to CEH anyways. But again, sticking in a game that has a huge total with 2 bad defenses and some pretty good offenses there, I will go with Darrell Williams' potential touchdown equity in this spot.
Makes very sound sense. Minty, this next question is coming to you. It is from AB, and AB wants to know, what's the best 3-team underdog money line parlay? Lots of words there.
Lots of words, lots of syllables. Okay, this is going to be a wild one. I think Panthers, Seahawks, Patriots. This parlay has a payout of plus 1452, which means if I put $100 down, I will win $1,452 if all of these underdogs win. So there's one for you.
Tank, we haven't heard from you in a minute, so let's have this next question go to you. It's from Boiler Mark, and Boiler Mark asks, Odell Beckham versus Arizona, Sterling Shepard, as we mentioned, coming back from injury versus the Rams, or Amon-Ra St. Brown, the rookie slot receiver in Detroit, half-point PPR?
Man, if Sterling Shepard is healthy, I got to go with Sterling. I mean, I feel like he's already shown that he was that #1 guy for the Giants. OBJ should be in line for a really good game with all the injuries that the Cleveland Browns have on offense, but I mean, Baker hasn't shown that he's going to give it to him yet, so I feel like your safer play is going with the known quantity, and that's that dude, Sterling Shepard.
Okay, Andy, I'm going to give you one more time to talk up Khalil Herbert. You ready? Austin is trying to decide in a standard league for his flex spot, Khalil Herbert versus those Packers, Alex Collins in relief of Chris Carson at Pittsburgh, or Zach Moss, who we talked about earlier, at Tennessee.
Yeah, I don't hate Zach Moss this week, and obviously Alex Collins is somebody who's stepping into a workload that is pretty secure. He's probably going to play about 3/4 of the snaps. We like that. But this is a case where I'm going with Khalil Herbert, and I don't know that this is going to be a week where the Bears can run that game plan, right, where they only pass the ball 20 times and they throw it they only pass the ball 20 times and they run it 40 times. That's probably not going to be in play against Green Bay. They won't have that luxury. But Herbert looks so good, and it's just him in the backfield right now. Damian Williams obviously not going to go in this one. David Montgomery out. So we're looking at 20+ touches. They're probably going to see 5 of them or so through the air. So this is Herbert for me in a close one over Zach Moss.
All right, it's time to take a quick break here in FFL, but before we do, let's check in on the London game. We are tied at 20, and Matthew Wright, oh my gosh, Linda, it's like she manifested it, just kicked a 54-yard field goal. All right, we'll be right back.
B, I want the real B.
I feel like I'm a starter. Everybody feel like I'm a starter.
If you don't know me, feel free to judge.
People always ask, will Kevin Love go back to Portland?
If I was wearing a Portland jersey, I mean, that's special. That's playing at home.
Did you talk to LeBron?
We never really talked about those battles. We moved forward from that.
There's some lines that even ambassadors shouldn't cross.
And then there's the load management.
How you feel about that, Dr. J?
I'm Hannah Kaiser, and this is The Bandwagon. The best way to watch baseball is with an unnecessarily masochistic level of emotional investment. Check out these dance moves. Ohtani unleashed. Aliens, fan. I don't know if they're watching. Huge fan. It was a socially distanced first pitch. He looks like a female superhero. This week on Humble Proposal, Jason Benetti, Jeff Passan, Shane Bieber. Every morning I wake up and I look at the standings and I'm like, who's out of the running? Nobody. Only the Pirates.
When I'm decorating a space, I'm constantly shopping, even on Yahoo Mail.
Oh, it's so perfect!
Finding the right piece really brings it all together.
Watch free live football. The NFL is on your phone all season long. Watch the NFL live on the Yahoo Sports mobile app.
And we're back here on Fantasy Football Live. 7 games kicking off at the top of the hour. Here are the key actives and inactives this morning. Chiefs receiver Tyreek Hill missed a couple of practices this week with a quad injury, but it looks like he'll be in there today against Washington, who will have Terry McLaurin and Antonio Gibson, both of whom were listed as questionable earlier in the week. Chargers wideout Mike Williams missed practice all week, but he's active against the Ravens. That's a relief because he's coming off of that monster 34-point fantasy performance last week. Finally, Cowboys-Patriots this afternoon has some questionable tags, including Ezekiel Elliott, but he is expected to play, and Damian Harris should also be active in this game. All right, Minty. It is time for you and me to debate your best bets for this week. What have you found? What have you discovered?
Okay, so first game we're going to an AFC West matchup between the Raiders and Broncos. The total is set at a low 44, and I kind of like the under. Both these teams combined are 7-3 to the under so far this season. The Broncos defense giving up the third least yards per game and only 15 points per game, while the Raiders are ranked 10th in total yards allowed. Vegas is a slow team offensively, and the Broncos have a great defensive unit, so I really like the under here.
I am going to agree with you here. I mean, both of these teams are in the bottom 12 among scoring. Raiders just have 12 touchdowns on the season, and the Broncos only have 10. Plus, you talked about the Broncos defense. It's pretty good. They're ranked number 10 in defensive DVOA. Andy mentioned earlier the week that the Raiders have had, plus this game's at Mile High. Give me the under. Next.
Yes, next, Sunday Night Football, we've got the Seahawks and Steelers. No one wants to touch Seattle without Russell Wilson, without Chris Carson, but we have to remember that these key injuries are built into this line, and I guess it doesn't really help that they're traveling from west to east, but the Steelers are lowly ranked in points per game and total yardage. They're not that good at covering a spread this big either. In fact, they're 0-4 against the spread, their last 4 as 5-point favorites or more. So I like Seattle plus 5.5, and I think if we wait till kickoff, we can get a +6 in there.
Ooh, girl, we are vibing. I feel you. I think that the betting line on this, everyone is overreacting to Geno Smith because of the narrative that he is attached to it. And I get it. It's been a minute. Like, the Steelers are going to have to blow off the dust on those VHS tapes to see what he can do. But come on, there's DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett in this one. You know what? I'm not only going to take, finally, the Seahawks by 5.5. I'm also going to take the money line on this game. I think the Seahawks win.
Ooh, I like that. I like that, and I'm on that with you as well. So moving on to Monday Night Football, we have the Bills and Titans. Should be an exciting game, and I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. Total set at 54. I like the over. Both of these teams capable of scoring, but I don't think that Titans defense will be able to keep up with that Buffalo offense, and I don't think this Buffalo defense will be able to keep up with Derrick Henry and this Titans rush game. So I like the over here. Liz, let's make it a sweep.
Oh, let's not. We got to keep things interesting for the people, right? As Matt always says. So can the Bills put up 40 points? Yeah, we've seen them do that regularly. That means can the Titans with a wonky hammied Julio, still not right A.J. Brown, and Derrick Henry, who's been amazing, but versus the Bills defense that we've talked up throughout the show, can they put up 2 scores? Nah, I don't think so. So I'm going to take the under.
Oh, okay.
You just heard me and Minty be the woo girls on that one. Woo. So woo for you. There's still some time to adjust your lineup. So let's get to our fantasy freebies for this week. Matt, who do you have?
Yeah, boys, let's tackle this one here for the people. Again, as Liz just said, let's talk about some players that are under 25% started in Yahoo leagues, but might have a little bit more juice than people are giving them credit for. Andy, I'm going to start it off with you.
Yeah, give me Tim Patrick. He's somebody that I basically write about every week in the pickups column because you people are stubbornly not adding Tim Patrick, despite the fact that he's been one of the most consistent receivers on the year. He has at least 80 yards or a touchdown in 4 of 5 games so far this season. The targets have been climbing week to week. He saw 9 targets last week. Again, Jerry Jeudy out, KJ Hamler out. It's Tim Patrick, it's Courtland Sutton, it's Noah Fant. They get a matchup against the Raiders. Again, we don't need to belabor the point, but it's been quite a week for the Raiders, clearly dealing with distraction here. I expect Tim Patrick to again, I mean, the guy's 6'4". He's a great red zone target. I expect him to serve again as a red zone target in this one. Really good shot of scoring a touchdown, perhaps 2, in this matchup with Vegas.
I love it. Just such an underrated player is Tim Patrick. All right, Tank. Who is your sleeper this week?
I feel like I need to have an ISO cam on you while I'm talking about this dude. This Taylor Heineke, bruh. Going against the Kansas City Chiefs. Like, the Chiefs give up the most fantasy points to quarterbacks. I mean, I feel like that's all I need to say, but if you want me to continue, okay, I will. Like, Josh Allen and Justin Herbert threw 4 tubs against them. Lamar Jackson had 3 tubs against them. Like, Jalen Hurts had 2 tubs, and I don't even know why I'm saying this, but somehow, some way, Baker Mayfield didn't have any tubs against them. I don't know how that happened, and that's making me feel bad about my ball on the budget. But with that being said, Heineke has over 20 fantasy points in 3 out of 5 games. I really like the floor that his legs provide. I think this is going to be a high-scoring environment, so I believe getting Taylor Heineke in your lineup is something that would be magically delicious for your fantasy score this week.
ODU's finest, Taylor Heineke. One of his passing targets is actually Ricky Seals-Jones. We've talked about it a lot on the show, which has me worried because I have got a beer bet with TJ Hernandez on our DFS pod about his rostered rate. So all this talk about Ricky Seals-Jones having me a little nervous. I'm going to have to give TJ a beer, which I really hate to do. But I will not hate playing Ricky Seals-Jones this week, especially in daily fantasy, as Tank mentioned earlier. But even in your season-long leagues, with the pride of Lynchburg, Virginia, Logan Thomas out of the lineup, the Washington football team gave Ricky Seals-Jones just basically that role. He played 99% of the snaps, ran a route on 87% of ODU's finest, Taylor Heineke's dropbacks last week. Like, that is basically just the Logan Thomas role. Ricky Seals-Jones is actually a former wide receiver, so there's a position conversion narrative there too. It's just a great spot for Ricky Seals-Jones in this one. I mean, listen, eight targets last week too. Like, this guy is a top 12 tight end play, so it makes sense that we continue to talk about him. But that's enough of us talking. It's time to hear what you people, my people had to say in this week's episode of Survival Kit, and I got to get off screen before Trevor comes and beats me up for all the Virginia references over here. We asked you, what is your biggest pet peeve in fantasy football? Let's get right into it because it is time to just let some of these emotions out. I got a little bit of a problem with this one, okay? Yeah, you know, it is a pet peeve if you think you're the only one that's getting screwed by players underperforming or, you know, just bad luck in general. Hey, let me break it to you. As somebody who drafted Allen Robinson everywhere this year, it is frustrating when you had a thought about a player that he was going to crush it with this new rookie quarterback, and then the whole coaching staff just decides, nope, we're going to pull it back. We're going to be the most conservative team in the league. But at the end of the day, we're all going through this. We are all victims of underperforming players, of bad luck. Luck is a big part of this game, folks. It's just unavoidable. So you might think that you're in this box, in this silo, on this island all alone, but you're not. We're all going through this together. Don't get too frustrated. It's fine. It's a communal experience after all. I don't know if that helps, but it's something. This one, Scott, you nailed it. You gave my favorite response to this one so far. It's injuries. Yes, injuries are in fact my biggest pet peeve in fantasy football. It's an unavoidable reality of the game, but doesn't mean it's not frustrating. I mean, first of all, we have to remember it's about the players, okay? Without players, we don't have a game. Secondly, on a more selfish note, nothing feels worse than going into a season, you absolutely nailed a player evaluation, that favorite sleeper of yours, he gets the starting spot, he ends up running all the routes with the first team in the first couple of weeks, you know you nailed that breakout guy, and then boom, injury, he's done, out for the year. Or even worse, you started a guy aggressively in your flex spot, and it looks like it's all going to work out in this great matchup. 2 plays into the game, boom, injury, done. It is extremely frustrating, but again, it is an unavoidable reality of this game we played, so it's best to just fortitude yourself and have a great bench, have some backup plans. Insurance is always good. Okay, I lied. Actually, I said that Scott sent in my favorite response. John, you actually sent in my favorite spot. And I'm not just saying this because I had Tyler Lockett on every single team, every daily fantasy lineup last Thursday night, man. And I mean, how frustrating is it? Tyler Lockett did the work to earn those yards, to move the ball down the field for his team. And how many times do we see this on a given Sunday, Monday, Thursday, Saturday when they do those weirdo games? It's so irritating. Like, the wide receiver did his job. He got them to that point, right? Like, we should get some kind of fractional reward for that or something. You know, I don't get on my soapbox often on this show. But if I could, yeah, we got to change something about this in fantasy football. I mean, give me a break. Something's got to change. We give participation trophies out for everything else. Why can't we have one for offensive players getting pass interfered with?
All right, it's time for a little Make Your Pick, where we take your social questions and we continue to help out the people with their flex decisions. I'm joined by Liz here. Let's allow Ryan to get us started. It's a half PPR. We need to just choose one here. Love when they keep it simple. It's Julio Jones, it's Khalil Herbert, it's Cole Beasley, Damien Harris, Sony Michel. Wow, congrats to Sony Michel for working his way into this question. Liz, why don't you pick one here?
So Damien Harris, already talked up Ramondre Stevenson and how he is the answer behind the Mona Lisa, right? So no thank you. Sony Michel, you mentioned it. Cole Beasley, I mean, if there is a city, by the way, that Cole Beasley could mess stuff up in, it's Nashville, but still and then we got Julio Jones coming off this hamstring. I just don't trust it. So yeah, I'm gonna give it to Khalil Herbert just because of the amount of volume he should receive.
Yeah, listen, I love your process here. That's what it comes down to for me as well. Julio Jones would normally be the choice here, but coming off a multi-week hamstring injury, I just don't think I could do it. And then Cole Beasley, he's only seen 2 targets in each of his last 2 games. So Emmanuel Sanders just continues to be a thing there. So definitely Herbert on volume. Let's take another question here. Let's see who we've got. We've got AR. And AR is giving us Kadarius Toney, A.J. Brown, another injured Titan, Chuba Hubbard, Chase Claypool. It's a standard league, so that's old school. Needs 2. I'll start us off here, and I'm gonna go Chuba Hubbard here, just off of workload again. It's basically the Khalil Herbert argument. It's a standard league, and I'm gonna give Chase Claypool the best shot of finding the end zone from these other 3, because we're not really concerned about receiving volume necessarily. It's gonna be Claypool for me. Again, I don't love being tied to Ben. But man, Claypool is so good. Harmon talked about it earlier. The targets should tick upward. The snaps should tick upward for Claypool. So slight edge to him for me. Liz, do you agree?
Absolutely. When you're talking about touchdown equity, especially in a standard scoring format, then yes, I want the running back almost always, and I want the red zone option, especially with Juju Smith-Schuster not being an option in Chase Claypool. So we're in lockstep on this one too.
All right, that's going to do it. Keep your questions coming on social. Use the hashtag AskFFL. Now let's send it to the consolation bracket of Fantasy Face-Offs.
Actually, before we jump into our Facebook, before we jump into our face-off, we actually have to give you an update on the London game. It is over. The Jaguars and Urban Meyer have their first win, 23-20 over the Miami Dolphins. I think I literally checked the Urban cam again, and there was actually a sigh of relief from Urban Meyer just getting out there. And really, though, yeah, the Jags win this game. That's nice and all. But Tank, I think we are the real winners here. We're all the winners because this game did not go to overtime. Literally, no one needed that. We did not need that. But what the people definitely need, Tank, is for us to do our little wide receiver face-off here. I'm going to let you go first. We're talking about 2 rather disappointing wide receivers so far this year, but tell us why you like Odell Beckham this week.
All right, so I'm going to tell you why I like Odell Beckham over Allen Robinson. So this is going to be pretty simple. Let me just throw out some stats for you. Arizona defense gives up the 13th most wide receiver fantasy points, and the Green Bay defense gives up the 10th fewest. Baker Mayfield has thrown 4 passing touchdowns this year. Justin Fields has only thrown 1. No Nick Chubb, Darnell Mooney. And the thing that's going to put the icing on the cake, if the Cleveland Browns want to trade OBJ and get more than like 2 flat tires, they need to have him ball out at least 1 game, and this should be the game where you're going to get Kyler Murray. So that's my justification for OBJ balling out over Allen Robinson this week.
Listen, I hear you. All great points there. These guys are like back-to-back in my rankings, real close overall. Would rather not be in a position where I have to start either of them, but I drafted a bunch of them, so here we are. Great, I got to start one of these guys. And I do think I like Allen Robinson just a touch more than Odell Beckham this week because you mentioned that Green Bay's defense looks good statistically, but we have to consider that Jair Alexander is on IR. We saw Jamar Chase rip him deep last week. Justin Fields is throwing down the field, and I actually think the overall passing volume for Chicago will go up this week because, look, they played the Raiders and the Chargers the last 2 weeks. Were basically in positive game script throughout, so they could just sit on the ball, pull back the offensive aggressiveness, but I think they're going to have to do not that against Aaron Rodgers. So I think Allen Robinson will finally have a big game this week, like him just a touch more than Odell Beckham. All right, well, if you drafted a bunch of Allen Robinson, you're probably feeling like I am and tired of coming in last place in your fantasy leagues. But you can start winning. You can start turning things around by getting a subscription to Yahoo Fantasy Plus. Get the edge that you need to dominate your league. Get access to exclusive tools like the Research Assistant, the Trade Hub. The Trade Hub is awesome. The expert rankings, and so much more. Start your free trial right now, today. Get out of the Allen Robinson business. Stop hating yourself for that and start a free trial, 7-day free trial today with Yahoo Fantasy Plus.
All right, we are just moments away from kickoff, so we're going to get to as many social media questions as we can, and we're going to start with one from Hot Stove Steve. This human has a question about Darrell Williams, Marquise Brown, or Zach Moss. You know what, Matt? Since you were right about Brown going over last week in our over-under segment, I'm going to give you this question again. Darrell Williams, Marquise Brown, or Zach Moss?
Yeah, I'm tired of talking about all these goofball RB2 backup guys. Like, give me Marquise Brown in this spot once again. I know I've made the point that the Chargers will limit the deep pass, and we think of Hollywood Brown as just a deep ball receiver, but no way. I mean, right now this guy is absolutely crushing zone coverage. He's getting open. He's getting separation. They're using him in a great way too. 42% of his targets come from the slot. Rashad Bateman is back this week. That finally making his big NFL debut. That is exciting, but Marquise Brown has an established place in this offense, and with Sammy Watkins out as well, that just opens up more target value for him. I'm definitely going Brown in this spot.
All right, Tank, this next one is for you. It's from DVP. He also has a question with two goofball RB2s and a wide receiver. Are you taking Khalil Herbert, Chuba Hubbard, or Emmanuel Sanders? You can pick two of these guys, though, so you can mix it up.
I'm picking two, so I mean, off top, I'm going to Emmanuel Sanders. I like that game script that's going to go down in Nashville, and I love that matchup against that Titans secondary. They've been getting honey roasted all season long. So if I have to pick between Khalil Herbert, the unknown quantity, and Chuba Hubbard, a guy that I feel Carolina is trying to use in that Christian McCaffrey role where they give him a lot of volume in the run and in the pass game, I got to go with Chuba over Khalil. Even though I like the way Khalil Herbert looked against the Raiders last week.
All right, Minty, this question is for you. It's from Jay Leaks. Why is there more love for Minnesota than Carolina this week?
Well, I believe the way Carolina's defense looked last week and their lackluster offense and them dropping 2 straight games with the Vikings being the more healthier and complete team might be the reason why Minnesota is getting more love. But I'm not buying it. I actually really like Carolina plus 2.5 and for them to win straight up.
All right, Andy Behrens, this next question is from you. It has clearly been sent from your not at all creative burner account, Andy and Jenny. They need some tight end help in a PPR format. Dawson Knox or TJ Hawkinson?
Oh, I'm deeply resentful of this person or this couple for making me pick against TJ Hawkinson, but Hawkinson is playing through injury right now, right? And it's been a really quiet 3 weeks. He has not excelled while dealing with the injury. I got to go Dawson Knox here. And I think he's a real part of the offense, like not just a red zone weapon, not just somebody they look to in goal-to-go situations, but we've seen it over the past couple games. He's seeing the ball in any area of the field, and he's looked great. No drops this year. Like he's been fantastic. So Knox, to me, just a money player and a great matchup against Tennessee.
All right, I think we have time for one more here. This one is from the Ancient Mariner. Tank, I want to know what you think about this because I have a feeling I know where Matt and Andy might stand. Half-point PPR, Adam Thielen at Carolina, we just talked about that Panthers defense, or Kadarius Toney, who we can't stop talking about, versus the Rams.
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, Toney is the man right now, but I feel like I need to go at Thielen. I think last week Thielen got his first 2 catches in that last drive as Minnesota was going down to win the game with the field goal. I feel that they'll bounce back and probably have him more heavily involved in this one. Like, I understand Tony is the man right now, but you have Sterling Shepard coming back, DJ coming back from that gruesome hit. I'm not sure how functional he's going to be going against that Los Angeles Rams defense. I feel like that could be a tough prospect for them this week. So I'm going with my man feeling that feeling.
You were feeling Thielen, and that is going to do it for this edition of Fantasy Football Live. Thanks for kicking off your Sunday with us. The conversation, though, does not stop here. Matt and Minty will be back at 2:30 p.m. Eastern with Yahoo Sportsbook Live, and you can check out our podcast, the Fantasy Football Forecast. Also, Mad Bets, our daily betting show. All of those are on Yahoo throughout the week, and we'll be back here next Sunday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern, 8:30 a.m. Pacific to help you with those lineups, because get this, there will be 6 teams on bye next week. But take a deep breath for now. Good luck to all of your fantasy teams in Week 6.